Welcome to the MOOC on Understanding Global Politics. Today we will be discussing the role of civil society in global governance. The course of development of civil society in different countries of Asia and in different countries of Europe has been different because the development of democratic consciousness over the years have been different in different countries. When we study the question of democratic awareness, we have seen that how absolute monarchy has turned itself into constitutional monarchy over the years. And we think and talk on constitutional monarchy today. And whenever we do so, the example of Westminster pattern and particularly the example of Britain comes to our mind. How the British experience has evolved from absolute monarchy to constitutional monarchy. In the same way, if we take the example of India and go to Mahabharata, we will find that how Vishwa is advising Dhritarashtra to take the suggestions of Vidura in running the state. So, Vidura came from the commoners. He was a Dashiputra, Shudra. And he was the prime minister. And Vishwa is advising Dhritarashtra that you consult Vidura in the affairs of the state. In the course of doing so, what happened? We have seen that Dhritarashtra denied in accepting the suggestions of Vidura, and conclusions are known to us. But there is a concept hidden in the advice of Vishwa, that you take the suggestions of Vidura, the prime minister, and run the state. Here is the concept of constitutional monarchy, which is taking shape and hidden in the advice of Vishwa. If we go deep into the advice of Vishwa and try to read between the lines. From ancient traditions, if we come to the recent trends in global governance, we see that the civil society has considerably increased its influence in the functioning of global governance. This is closely interacted with the emerging global order and the democratic awareness which has risen amongst the masses, and how this democratic awareness has risen amongst the masses due to the activities of the civil society, the political parties. People gradually became aware of their rights and responsibilities. The civil society functions in different layers. It functions at the local layer, it functions at the national layer, it functions at the transnational layer. Civil society's influence in global governance, particularly the institutions, more specifically the institutions which play a very important role in decision making. There the influence of the civil society has increased over the years. Democratic approach to governance and issues related to it, which encompasses accountability, fundamental rights, political authority, all these together have created a new order where global civil society and global democratic order is influencing each other at the time of execution. The recent developments prove that the understanding of internal dynamics related to civil society and its influence in global governance has influenced the public opinion in different countries. Now, public opinion is a very important issue. Without this understanding of present day actions and reactions of any governmental decisions on public opinion, we can't discuss the role of civil society in global governance. This importance of public opinion and the influence of global civil society on creating this public opinion is immense. In a widely recognized global society, which plays a significant role in global governance, particularly in the past 30 years, more specifically during the post-Cold War era, we know the world was divided into two major poles, one led by the United States of America, the other led by the erstwhile Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. And this two blocks were the two dominant blocks which was influencing international politics. So, the era of civil society, practically the organizations associated with civil society, during the post-Cold War era, has played an important role in shaping global opinion in recent times. Today, in this postmodern age, there are international lobbies. As we used to have pressure groups in national politics, now there are international lobbies which influence international politics. And these international lobbies plays an important role in creating international global democratic awareness, setting narratives in favor of peace and harmony. War is no more the option out for anyone. Dialogue, discussion, diplomacy, these are the channels of international politics, established, recognized, admired. And also to create an ambience, this ambience for social security. Now we are in an age of capitalism. Globalization, privatization, liberalization are the call of the day. You have to accept it. And how to make a human face of this concept of globalization. Globalization cannot be divorced from global society. Globalization is part and parcel of global society. Now, civil society organizations have been significant and it plays an important role as actors in knowledge society. This is the force today. A nation which is blessed with a knowledge society is an advanced nation. The global activism has taken place due to institutional support. And this institutional support comes from international lobbies backed by big corporates. The change in the mindset of global society is due to new emerging economic opportunities which has occurred in recent times as a result of technological innovations. This technology transfer, updated technology, is creating the surplus value, much needed for capitalism to survive. And the dominance of political ideologies in accepting these changes has to be taken note of. Those political ideologies which can't accept this new changes in the thought process is gradually becoming outdated. We have to accept globalization, accept liberalization, accept privatization. We have to accept these new changes, and we have to accept the presence of a global society, and the concept emerging is global citizenship. Therefore, the ecosystem which surrounds the ruling political narratives have always been dominant voice of the global civil society organizations. This ecosystem is also very important. Ruling establishment creates ecosystem, flatters the ecosystem, give opportunities to the ecosystem, and the ecosystem creates public opinion for the ruling establishment. And it is happening worldwide. Changes in governments come and go, but the ecosystem remains. So having control over the ecosystem is very important to shape the opinion of the global civil society organizations. There has been effort in recent times for the inclusion of civil society actors within the international decision making. The United Nations has been supporting the very concept of cooperation between civil society and democratic governance setup. We have done away with absolute monarchy. The very concept of military government is moving out from the surface of the earth. Democracy has to be accepted. And this has been the international call of the day. And in global summits, we find how civil society organizations plays a very important role. In Europe, in Western civil society, we have seen how they work hand in gloves with the ruling government. In Asia, still the civil society organizations needs time to grow, because we know the differences between developed democracy and developing democracy. Issues like accountability, issues like fundamental rights, issues like political stability, issues like political authority are to be understood if we want to understand the very concept of the role of the civil society at the international level. And how this process moves. There is an equation between the global civil society and the global democratic order. The globalization process has generated a sense of brotherhood amongst international communities, irrespective of caste, creed, religion. The very question of the universal oneness of the humanity irrespective of its diversity, is rising up. And thus, it has triggered a sense of solidarity amongst the civil society organizations around the globe. The rapid economic developments which are taking place, turning fortunes, and the rising gap, which is a concern between the privileged and the underprivileged. The rich is becoming richer, the poor is becoming poorer, and the gap is increasing irrespective of this development, is another concern. The economic concern of the global civil society organizations. Therefore, not only international political issues, but also economic issues and social issues are influencing the behavior of the civil society. The technological innovations have played an important role in evolving the global society. The internet has connected different parts of the world and has played an important role in the course of exchange of ideas. And what we say and what we see out of this developments. International organizations, international system, international brotherhood, constitutional values, democratic awareness, human rights, public participation, economic opportunities, political ideologies, social empowerment, gender equality have played an immense role and created new opportunities and expanded the scope of possibilities for the global civil society to function. In today's world, when we accept universal adult franchise as the hallmark of democracy, we knew that in the earlier years that universal adult franchise was not accepted. Franchise was sometimes limited to wealthy people, limited amongst the educated people. So accepting universal adult franchise is an unique example. And this right given to each to vote has played an important role in developing democratic awareness. And thus civil society is promoting the participation of commoners in the process of decision making. Today you can't ignore the role of the man on the streets when you take decisions sitting in your chamber. So the idea of rule by the majority, that is through majority vote, has its merits as well as limitations. We have seen that how democracy tries to keep a harmonious balance between these very sensitive emotions, aspirations of the majority and the insecurity, fear playing in the minds of the minority. This is a global scenario. We have seen how ethnic cleansing have taken place in different countries of the world. And this took place on whom? Those who are ethnically minorities. So a democracy can function and it flourishes when you accept that both the majority and the minority has full right, equal right to stay with equal responsibilities too, equal duties also. And this has to be supported by a considerable section of the society. And here, the civil society organizations will have to play a positive role. And there has been an effort to create a balance between the role of the ruling establishment and the aspirations of the opposition political parties. Here also, the civil society has to do a very close, systematic, sophisticated balance. Democracy supports each community can survive in this world, irrespective of caste, creed, religion. And here, global civil society do have a responsibility to ensure that no discrimination should take place on the name of religion, caste, creed, or nationality or language. So human beings in this postmodern age has to be accepted as human beings with equal rights and responsibilities. And here the civil society plays a very sophisticated role so that development can take place, because democratic values and economic development are correlated. Global governance should be supported by a decent democratic structure. Steps should be taken for eradication of poverty and to ensure decent standard of living for each citizen. And for that, strong institutions are needed where the civil society should be given the chance to play its most important role as a catalyst. The basic principles of governance, such as individual freedom, adult franchise, and the core thing is rule of law. We say in general terminology, what we say, Thatcher's rule, Nehru's rule, Bajpayee's rule, but actually it's the rule of law, the rule of the Constitution. Now there are concepts of Constitution also. When you have a break in history, you win freedom, you have a written Constitution. But if you have an unbroken political history like Britishers have, they have unwritten Constitution. But customs, traditions, conventions play an important role in developing that pattern in a structure like the Britishers. So, here we should understand that rule of law is immensely important and closely connected with the concept of democracy and a democratic structure of government. They should also respect citizenship rights, and here I add duties too. Citizenship rights and duties go hands in gloves with each other. Therefore, it is that approach where one can live as part of the community, but that community cannot expect or propagate that it is a separate nationality. So it should be under the constitutional structure without nurturing separatist ideas. but protecting its unique features. And here lies the political activities that has facilitated the growth of the civil society organizations in understanding its role in the development of international society, the rising trends of nationalism, the awareness of being part of institutionalized religious society, the dominance of regionalism are factors which can play an important role as creating obstacles to the growth of international civil society organizations. But at the international level, the civil society organization should try to create a tuneful balance between the neoliberal approach and the center to right approach. If they can create this balance, and as long as they can create this balance, they can act as successful catalyst in this structure as non-governmental organization and transnational organizations. In an age of global transformation, when intergovernmental relations are becoming important response to different global significance like global warming, interdependence in global economic activities, pandemic situations which have global consequences, economic inequalities creating huge gap between the haves and have-nots, and intercultural exchanges. This has to be accepted by the global civil society in molding the democratic order, which will address the problems which we are facing as citizens of the global society. And as long as we can do so from the high heights of philosophical unity between different communities of the world, to the general standard where we are more concerned about the peculiarities and uniqueness we have, each and all in a harmonious manner should be connected in a non-violent way, so that a civilized system can evolve, a non-violent democratic order with international standing can emerge, where a neutral, impartial global civil society can function. The decision-making process and the policies are increasingly being influenced by international actions, and national borders at present is more closely connected. Tensions are always at the national borders. And as we started, and as the Indian experiences, India never went to other countries to conquer nations. That's a unique Indian example. Being a big nation, the queen of the world in the ancient period, India never went out to conquer nations. This has to be accepted. And if we accept this, the tension in the borders diminishes. And with the global order, if we accept this non-violence, democracy at present cannot be discussed without considering the role of the civil society. Because if we accept non-violence, both inside the country and in the borders at the international level, then only a democratic society emerges. The world today is tackling trans-border challenges. At different parts of the world, we have threats of nuclear proliferation. We have a crisis due to climatic changes. There is food crisis in different nations. And these we have to fight together. At the same time, the challenge to the inclusion of civil society actors in global governance and in the mechanisms is a never-ending process, is a continuous process. New institutional forms are coming up, continuously emerging, and the challenges are changing. And there is a need of integration so that different communities can live in peace. New international organizations are coming up, focus are changed, and we see how there is a shift from G8 to G20 format. Here it can be noted that civil society activists should try to accept these changes. While civil society activism in case of G8 was intense, but in recent meetings we have found that they are less active in case of G20. They have to be equally active in case of G20 as they were active in case of G8. And thus, as we move from these to an age of cosmopolitan democracy, which is an extension of decision-making process beyond national borders, which is emerging, and the ultimate goal is internationalization, a supranational political authority, executive and legislative powers, which aims in increasing the legitimacy of global governance, the neutrality of the judiciary, which are all playing its role in supporting the democratic structure and the global democratic order, which I told, is synthesized with the global civil society organizations.